Welcome to the 8 News Now streaming show for the investigators. I'm Kyle Paine in the streaming center, here to tell you that this episode airs on Mondays. We air this investigators program Mondays at 7 p.m. On Wednesdays, my colleague Vanessa Murphy has High Heels and Hidden Truths at 7 p.m. So Monday and Wednesday, you're full of investigators, and today's no different. With me is my colleague James Schaeffer. James is a reporter. You see him on television 5 nights a week here on Channel 8, and maybe more on our broadcast, 8 News Now at 4, 5, 6, and 11, and whenever James can find his way on. James, a local man. You've been here your whole life?
Yep, I'm a native. I've never left. Born and raised out of Henderson, and just worked at the newspaper for 5 years, and then been over here.
But not writing for the newspaper.
No.
You did something very different at the newspaper.
Yeah, we did 7 at 7. We launched that over there with several other people, and did the whole thing. It was an idea initially that there might be something to a digital stream, and all of a sudden I'm over here, and what do we know?
That's what we're doing. This is the stream, and we're on our streaming app, and this content that we do here is exclusive, but we do like to talk about some of the programming that we are able to put on the news, and that's what you do every night. You do a fine job. You've been here now 3 years, and I will say, I'm going to say, you don't have to say it, you have a knack for finding stories that people wouldn't even think to look for or find.
And for that, I owe you $20. Hold on. Let me just...
No, that's fine.
Okay, I can't even get in my wallet.
That's fine. But you do. You really do. And we're going to look at 2 of those stories today. The first one, as you can see on the bottom of our screen, deals with a mysterious green pond. Right.
So back in November of last year, I was on the Vegas Locals subreddit and saw a post about someone asking why they saw this or what this green pond was. Initially, the poster had thought it was having to do with the homeless tunnels. We've done stories in the past about there's a tunnel system underneath Las Vegas, and saying that something had happened. There was work being done on those. And all the commenters on the post said, yeah, it's the tunnels underneath Paradise and all that stuff. Well, looking closer at it, I noticed that it was the exterior of the old Firefly, the old restaurant in Paradise. And shortly thereafter, I went to our editorial meeting and I said, we have a story set up, but I want to go down and see if there is a big green pond on Paradise. I feel like I drive by it every day. Certainly I would have seen it. And our news director said, all right, go down there. And we went down there, and sure enough, there was a very large green pond the size of 2 tennis courts down at the old Firefly site. Then it became clear that it was there because there was construction work going on for the Boring Company.
All right, now what is that?
So the Boring Company is an Elon Musk-tied company. He has been working on a project called the Vegas Loop. Over 50 spurs, they call them, which are just stations for the Teslas to go in and out and take you all over Las Vegas. Later on this year, the airport loop system is going to be opening up to take commuters from the airport all the way down as far as right now is the Westgate and Resorts World. The Strat hoping to open up sooner, but that is kind of what it is. And have you ever been on it?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
No, that's just not me. I drive.
Yeah.
I'm a driver.
Yeah.
And but I'll say, so we're going to see a couple of parts of this story because it shows tremendous enterprising, and you've had all of this generally exclusively from your own reporting. But basically, you showed up and you wanted to look, and then that turned into a second part of the story, which was what their reaction was when you got there,
right?
And then an entirely different angle about what happened when the government found out what was going on.
Yes.
So I'd like to watch that first story about what happened when you showed up to see if there's a mysterious green pond.
Here it is.
Construction crews at a Vegas Loop site do not want you to see what's behind this fence just feet away from a busy valley road. A source familiar with the project telling us that company has already been cited with a $500,000 fine. I'm Denise Valdez.
And I'm Brian Loftus. This is right near the corner of Paradise and Twain. That's where we sent 8 News Now reporter James Schaeffer to find out why crews were hiding something in plain view.
Brian, Denise, we did not know what to expect when we got down here, and immediately some of those construction crews called us fake news and told us nothing was wrong. Well, take a look at the video, because we're about to show you what they literally covered up. A site worker in front of this visible pond at a Boring Company work site for the Vegas Loop, located on the former site of the Vegas restaurant Firefly. The water still and greenish, roughly the size of a tennis court. And if you're curious how close it is to the public, it's just feet away from Paradise Road near the Las Vegas Strip. Boring company crews saw our cameras and immediately worked to cover up the fence with black tarps, telling us to stay off property. We watched from a public sidewalk as they hid the site, citing privacy concerns. So we put our camera on a pole and got a better idea of how large the pond is. It's also visible from the Clark County website. But then,
you're not on private property, but there's an expectation with private.
security from the site told us not to watch the construction work from the public sidewalk, noting we were using a pole.
You can view it from public property, not over the fence.
A source familiar with the project told 8 News Now the site has been the subject of a $500,000 violation and comes on the heels of other fines, including an OSHA investigation which found nearly 20 workers were chemically burned and working in a site lined with spilled, quote, toxic sludge. The site, a part of the Vegas Loop system, an approved underground transportation network using Tesla cars. As for this body of water, we still don't know what it is, but it's apparent they don't want us or the public to see it.
There's an expectation of privacy.
Well, neighbors have an expectation to information. As to what is in that body of liquid, officially, we still don't know. We did reach out to the Nevada State Department of OSHA and also the Boring Company and have not heard back as of yet. Reporting live, James Schaeffer, 8 News Now.
Now, this isn't the first time we've had questions for the Boring Company's Vegas Loop construction. The company facing more than $100,000 fine and questions from the county after another dumping incident last year.
So two things about that. One thing was there was about $500,000 worth of fines that site previously had for illegal dumping of liquid of that sludge into the public sewer system.
Oh, really?
But that water, in that story I said we didn't know what that water is. We do now know what that water is. It is from a water aquifer below. As they've been doing the drilling, a lot of people don't know, underneath Las Vegas, there is very large water tables, and that's what they hit. That water came up to that site. The county had an inspector go out there and found that the water itself was not dangerous and thankfully was not going into the public sewer system.
So you get there. We have just a little time here. You get there. They're covering up, and you must think, I've found it.
Well, we went up, and there was tarps that had been knocked down on the fence, so you could clearly see it from the sidewalk. Then, of course, as these things happen, we showed up with a very large tripod and a camera, and Vegas Loop has their specific security, and they showed up, immediately got tarps from a truck that arrived on scene, and they started to cover up the fences with that. And then, as you saw, they thought that was enough. Unfortunately for them, we had a pole, put it on a camera, and then that's when security came out and said, and the guy's just doing his job.
Sure,
and
but making up the expectation and privacy law as we stand. Now, that was in November of 25. So in the several months since then, you've done many reports on this, and when we come back, we're going to see the culmination of that reporting from just a few days ago. Stay with us. Welcome back to The Investigators. I'm Kyle Paine. I'm joined today by James Schaeffer, who's doing this amazing work over the last several months of this Boring Company and a green pond, which we found out was there, was real, was problematic, and little did we know how many problems really existed. And your reporting uncovered what?
Yeah, it really is anything but boring, but as you mentioned, what did the story uncover? We found that there was plenty of OSHA complaints against the Boring Company. Now, mind you, it's a very large project, and large projects like that have OSHA investigations. Well, one of the things we found is that there was an incident back in 2024. I should preface this by saying one of the questions people have with the Vegas Loop system is, what happens if there's a fire down there? Well, Clark County firefighters had the same question, and they decided that they were going to do drills in the tunnels with Clark County firefighters responding to things down there. Back in December of 2024, they did exactly that. However, when they did it, it appears as though 2 Clark County firefighters went in, got all the liquid sloshed on them, and eventually had 2 firefighters sustained chemical burns to their feet. When they went to the hospital to take off their socks, their skin peeled off, leaving them with permanent scarring.
Goodness.
It was after that OSHA ended up looking into it and found that this did in fact happen, and then ended up filing $400,000 worth of fines against the Boring Company in regards to this. However, as the OSHA investigation drew near completion, the Boring Company said that they had several factors that the OSHA inspectors did not know or did not take into consideration. That, however, did not stop the fines. So it was then made known to us that a representative from the Boring Company reached out to a representative of the governor's office, Governor Joe Lombardo, made a phone call and some kind of communication, and sure enough, all of a sudden, the $400,000 worth of fines went away.
Really? And so, go ahead.
So if you ask the governor's office, they're going to say that this is a normal practice and that what happened was it was made known to them that those 2 Clark County firefighters were actually warned to wear PPE and refused to do so. One of the former, there was a retired Clark County firefighter that was actually on scene helping out with the boring company and yelled out, "What the F are those guys doing?" So the boring company felt they had a case. The governor's office agreed, and Nevada OSHA ended up opting with what they were told to do. Now, however, that ended up kicking off a slew of a political frenzy as this now pinned a Republican governor against Democratic Assembly members who said they don't feel like they knew the full answer as to why this was removed. And when they went to go look for the records of that meeting, they were deleted.
Really? And so just gone.
Well, so if you ask Director Sanchez, who's in charge of the State Office of the Business and Industry, he would tell you that under normal practices, sometimes things aren't kept, and the meeting records and the communications for this weren't kept. The interesting thing with that, though, is the governor was asked the same question during the Indy talks, and he said that, it also happened around the same time as the cyber attack. So not drawing a connection there, but just reminding people it happened around the same time.
So we ask for public records for meeting things. Most of that, from a meeting standpoint, Nevada's very good at making available. I understand there's times when they can't or don't give us stuff. We have to take those losses as they come. But to have something deleted would drive me crazy when I'm trying to get to the bottom of the story. And I think that that's criminal, personally.
Well, and the wording that the state Democratic Party is using is cover-up, which was the story yesterday. They ended up holding a press conference 6 months after they sent a letter and held a special committee specifically to ask those same questions to the governor's office, the head of business and industry, and then also the boring company. The problem with that was, though, back 6 months ago, the only people that showed up was the business and industry director, Dr. Sanchez. And what ended up happening was there was quite a lot of anger and ire drawn towards the governor's office from these assembly members and the committee. So that was a story we ended up doing last night.
Okay, well, let's watch that. That's a good one.
A Nevada congresswoman accusing a state office of participating in a cover-up with an Elon Musk-backed company. Governor Lombardo calling the allegation a shameful political stunt. In a story you'll only see on 8, reporter James Schaeffer asking both sides if this battle is over transparency or just election year politics. James.
Denise, this is over the Vegas Loop project. Previously, we've covered those 2 chemical burns on those Clark County firefighters and that green pond from late last year. This press conference marking 6 months since Dina Titus has asked for more information from the governor. The governor's campaign saying that this has already been asked and answered.
The cover-up. What happened? Tell us how they got off the hook.
Democratic Nevada Congresswoman Dina Titus and Democratic Nevada Assemblywoman Cynthia Moore taking aim at Republican Governor Joe Lombardo over nearly $500 million in fines the state waived from chemical burns on 2 Clark County firefighters conducting drills in the Vegas Loop tunnels, a project backed by Elon Musk.
And they feel like they can do it because they're big money they can get away with.
However, these questions largely already answered. That green water deemed by county inspectors not dangerous. A further study not conducted as the liquid was quickly removed.
If that green fluid is not dangerous, must be like Kool-Aid. Let's see if he wants to drink a glass of it.
As for the chemical burns, Nevada OSHA finding firefighters were not wearing proper PPE after a warning from on-site staff. Later, it was reported a representative of the boring company spoke with the governor's team, alerting them to that factor. The record of that conversation deleted.
Joe Lombardo is busy sucking up to billionaires to score potential points and blaming firefighters for their own injuries.
It's conjecture. It's frankly written by people that don't understand the process.
The Nevada Business and Industry Director, Christopher Sanchez, previously answered those questions from a special committee, adding his department has never been directed to come to a predetermined outcome.
Records of that meeting and phone call were deleted, which is a violation and a potential felony.
We ended by asking if this press conference is just politically convenient in this election cycle.
My answer is that we started this a year ago. That was not the election cycle. This is about the safety of the people who live in District 1.
Now, the Lombardo for Governor campaign did send us a statement tonight saying, in part, a federal OSHA investigation confirmed that the citations issued against the Boring Company did not meet required legal standard. Reporting live from the Central Valley, James Schaeffer, 8 News Now.
The governor's office and the Boring Company have previously replied to these allegations in writing only. More from both sides of the political aisle on this issue can be found in an article on our website.
Now, through all these stories, I should mention that we have heard from the governor's office and from the state assembly makers. The one group we have not heard from in any regard is the Boring Company or any ties to Elon Musk. They are not talking to us and haven't talked to us throughout this entire process.
All right. So that is tremendous from beginning to end of your reporting efforts. And I know that it's still ongoing. I also know that probably were it not for your original reporting, you never would have gotten that press conference, which I think they made tailor-made for you. And I love Dina Titus killing everybody with kindness there. But your job doesn't stop there. Like I said in the beginning, you do so many different kinds of stories, James. And when we come back after the break, we're going to see an entirely different flex that James does in his reporting, which is not only to tell someone's tragic tale, but to try and make some good out of it. And we'll get to that at the other end of this break. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Investigators Streaming Show in the 8 News Now Streaming Center. I'm Kyle Paine, joined today by James Schaeffer. James, we have one segment to get to, a very good story you did not too long ago. Many of our viewers will remember there was a terrible shooting at a Smith's a few Tuesdays ago. 2 people died. It was a domestic incident that went tragically wrong. And on that same day, in that morning, a woman was out for a walk, and you take it from there.
Yeah, so Iredell Washington and her sister Hester Johnson, 2 women in their 70s, were doing what they have done for months, go on a morning walk in the neighborhood. And it was shortly thereafter during their walk that all of a sudden, allegedly, a gunman appeared and attempted to mug them. Hester Johnson was shot twice in front of her sister holding and cradling her, asking her to stay with her as she did die. That story was a springboard onto another story. But first, this is the first story that we did about Hester Johnson and her sister, Iredell.
I just told her, Hester, don't leave me. Don't leave me here. Don't leave me here all by myself.
Las Vegas woman shot while on a neighborhood walk. Her sister holding and comforting her just moments before her breathing stopped, and an armed mugger ran away. Thanks for joining us at 11. I'm Denise Valdez.
And I'm Brian Loftus. 8 News Now reporter James Schaeffer with a story you'll only see here as an early morning mugging unleashed a tragedy into a family's home. James with more from where the scene unfolded near Flamingo and El Capitan.
Brian, Denise, Hester Johnson, 75 years old, was a military wife, a volunteer, and a sister killed here on this street tonight. Her family sitting down for the first time, trying to make sense of this murder.
Low-life dog killed her for nothing. For nothing.
Iredell Washington says her home is quieter without her sister.
I don't understand. I don't understand.
Both were on their routine walk on the morning of May 12th when suddenly a man appeared with a gun attempting to rob them.
And that's what I said. God, he gonna kill us out here, both of us.
And sometime during that incident, the male shot one of the females and then fled on foot.
Police say around 5:30 in the morning, this neighborhood street was turned crime scene. The gunman's orders mumbled and unclear.
And my sister is dead. And he's still alive.
The court did find probable cause existed for your arrest.
It would be the next day. 24-year-old Devian Teague was charged in connection to the shooting of Hester Johnson, a woman who volunteered at Opportunity Village.
But she just loved that job. She learned how to do sign language there to help the people.
Photos tell a story of a woman guided by patience, humor, a military wife, and Kennedy King College student from Chicago, a sibling who lovingly teased her older sister.
We always played tricks on each other because one of them had to be smarter than the other. She had to be smarter because she was younger, but that's what she thought.
Their morning ritual of a walk through the neighborhood scarred, as Iredell, now reluctant to step out of her own front door, hearing her sister's voice.
I know she would tell me, you got to be strong because I'm not coming back. And I know she's not. But all the crying is not going to bring her back. But I just want justice for her.
The alleged gunman, Devian Teague, was charged with 1 count of open murder and 2 counts of robbery. The next court date is scheduled for July 1st. Reporting from the Southwest Valley, James Schaeffer, 8 News Now.
Now, this is not where the story ends. Ardell says they planned a funeral and the family was robbed again, this time by a Las Vegas-based company. We'll have what the company is saying in response here tomorrow.
James, excellent job. Anybody watching from home should know how difficult it is to go into someone's home who's grieving like that and make them tell you what happened and go on about either of your day. It's extremely hard thing to do, and you did it very well. But that was part 1 of 2. We heard Denise say she got robbed again, and that is a little bit tongue-in-cheek because there's nothing that's ever going to replace her sister. But there was a consumer angle to this, which we like here on the news, and you were able to help with that. Why don't you set that up and get right into it?
Yeah, the sad thing is these stories are quite common where we talk to victims. What made it uncommon and unique for this was we then were told by her that there was something else that happened. She had just gotten a $10,000 gift for her sister, and unfortunately, her sister did die. She went to get the refund, and the company said no. On top of that, saying that she had to pay a fine for it. She made clear that her sister was dead and said that this was a very unique situation. The company said that they had experienced a death in their family too and pretty much told her tough. So what we then did is we reached out to the company, and their response was unique in of itself. Take a listen.
Las Vegas woman received a $10,000 home remodeling gift from her sister, but days later, that same sister would die in a random act of violence.
Now the survivor is wrestling with the contractor to get the money back. 8 News Now reporter James Schaeffer with the story and the company's explanation.
I told her, you know what? I'm going to get you a shower so you won't have to step over the tub or worry about falling.
Iredell Washington said it was a $10,000 gift for her sister, Hester Johnson.
And she said, for real? Are you going to really get me one? I said, yes.
Easy Bath and Shower Las Vegas, located in this warehouse district, agreed to the project and bought supplies. But then
I just told her, Hester, don't leave me. Don't leave me here.
Johnson, shot by an alleged mugger, dying in her sister's arms. After an arrest, the family sought to cancel the shower after a death in the family, but the company's email in response?
He said he had a death in his family. So I'm trying to figure out what do that supposed to mean to me. I'm not holding his money.
After days of a back and forth, the company said the family owed 30%, thousands of dollars for canceling a walk-in shower. But the problem is,
her soap dish in the wall.
No work has been done. That's when Iredell called us.
You messed with the wrong family this time.
Once we emailed Easy Bath and Shower, they immediately agreed to a refund and claimed they did not initially understand the tragic circumstances surrounding the family, adding as a sign of goodwill they'd put $500 towards funeral costs. Washington reacting.
If this is true, I haven't heard from them, so where's the 500? Where's everything? Is this just something to get you off of them or what?
As Washington waits, she expressed thanks for some resolution for she and her sister's sake.
If you hadn't got involved, it would have been back and forth. Well, look how long it's been. So
that was James Schaeffer reporting. The company again reiterated they had no idea whatsoever that this was involved with Johnson's shooting death, adding the project was under Washington's name, and this was being handled as a typical cancellation within the contract. We'll be following up on if the refund is made.
So we did follow up. I made an email chain with both the company and the family, and I'm looking at it, and it still has not been resolved. So they're working it out. They're trying to figure out right now whether it's going to be credit or a cashier's check, but that's the end of that story.
What a great character, summed up at the end there with basically show me the money. But also summing it up to say, James, that was a nice retrospective of some of the multi-dimensions of work that you do as a journal assignment reporter, factoring in some investigative work and some old-fashioned gumshoe reporting.
You'll keep getting as long as you guys keep paying me.
That's right. And you do a fine job. And this is our show, Mondays at 7. Vanessa Murphy with High Heels and Hidden Truths Wednesday at 7. We hope to see you watching some of those. Thank you for being with us.